What's up with y'all out there? This is Best Way to Smoke Weekly News, and make sure you stay elevated with me, Big J. And we're gonna talk about another news story that's pressing. It's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but we're gonna deliver this news to you right here. And this is pertaining to the Second Amendment right on the verge of being stripped away from cannabis users. The Supreme Court is currently navigating a major legal battle over marijuana users should they be stripped of their Second Amendment rights. The premier case, United States versus Hemani, is scheduled for oral arguments on Monday, March 2nd, which is today. Key information and case context. The statute at the center of the fight is 18.S.C, a federal law that prohibits anyone who is an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substance in possession of firearm. The defendant, Allah Daniel Hemani, a Texas man, was charged after FBI agents found a handgun and marijuana in his home. Hemani admitted to using marijuana a few times a week, but was not intoxicated at the time of the search. So it's just like how they do with the jobs and shit, like with work. How they got it under a context, like, as long as it's not a certain amount, a certain percentage in there, they can't fire you, or they can't take disciplinary action. So what Hemani is thinking, and what a lot of us is under the impression is, if I'm not currently stoned, then how can you strip away my Second Amendment rights and take my firearm? The historical test. Following a 2022 Bruen decision, the government must prove that gun restrictions are consistent with the historical tradition of firearm regulations. The DOJ argues that drug users are analogs to habitual drunkards. I don't even know what that's supposed to be, habitual drunkards, who were historically disarmed. Maybe people that drunk a lot, though. That's what it kind of sounds like. Look, the challenge. Advocates argue that while historical laws punished being armed while intoxicated, they never stripped sober citizens of the right to own a gun just because they occasionally use intoxicants. So, with that, you got to think about a cop, though, when it comes to taking medication or drinking alcohol. Even though those things are legal, it still puts you in a state, like shit, to me, worse than cannabis, though. Really, it created an unusual alliance with everything that's going on. So this case has created a strange bedfellows in the legal world, as groups are usually at odds have joined forces, and sometimes that's what it takes, man, for people to communitize for one common goal. You know what I mean? So here are the supporters of gun rights for users. The NRA argues that the ban is an overreach and lacks historical precedent, which is true. And you got the ACLU claims that the law is unconstitutional and argues and targets vulnerable groups. Then you got Normel. Shout out to Normel. They've been advocates in this industry for a while. Normel contends that medical and recreational users shouldn't be second-class citizens. And that's a fact, man, because that don't change who you are just because you might indulge in a little flower from time to time. So here's the supporters of the ban. The Trump administration, as we know, they're defending the law as a necessary public safety measure. Everytown for Gun Safety argues drug use presents a unique danger and justifies restrictions. I think, I can understand that when it comes to certain drugs, though, but I believe that marijuana should not be in that category. Gun control advocates, they generally support the categorical ban on drug users. I don't think it's fair, just because I'm a cannabis user, and I indulge, I still don't think it's fair that they want to spit it in this way. And it's just another way, of control. And to me, it kind of, it targets it targets, it targets the right people. You know what I'm saying? So this is why it matters. The state versus federal conflict. Marijuana is legal in many states but remains a Schedule 1 controlled substance federally. This case could determine if millions of state legal users have committed federal felonies by owning a gun. So now that's a twist. Now just imagine if you're a recreational user, a medical user, and you own a gun. If this law is passed and this law goes through, it means that in their eyes you have a gun illegally. So how is this supposed to actually work? You know what I'm saying? Is what I'm thinking about if that's the case. Okay, the Hunter Biden connection. This same statute was used to convict Hunter Biden for possessing a firearm while addicted to cocaine, making the ruling a highly political charge. Critics argue the term unlawful user provides no clear standard for how much or how recent the drug use must be to trigger a 15-year prison sentence. Man, this is deep. You know what I mean? So for any of y'all that's not really paying attention to this, I urge you to, to really take a look and see what's going on, especially if it's going to affect you. And I would say, when it comes to the Second Amendment right, I think it affects all of us, because if this trickles into a change, into the wrong kind of change, I wonder what else will trickle into a change. Whatever else might happen though, man. But this is Best Way to Smoke Weekly News, and I want to thank you for tapping in with me. We'll see you next time, man. I'm Big J, and make sure you stay elevated.